Howdy folks, I'm Mega Matt. We're a wedding DJ entertainment service located right here in beautiful Mankato, Minnesota. We specialize in creating both fun and family-friendly wedding receptions. The simplest way to plan your wedding reception is to go through each one of the video clips and make a quick note as to what you're interested in. Our goal is to make your guests say, this was the single funnest wedding reception that we've ever been to. So if that's what you're looking for, you've come to the right place. So let's go ahead and start to create the soundtrack to your perfect wedding reception. If the goal is to keep as many people dancing as humanly possible, we believe that every single guest should know every single song. If you do this, people will dance. When it comes to music planning, we believe that thirds is typically a very good approach. And what I mean by this is a third of the music comes from you guys as a couple, sitting down and maybe writing out a little playlist for the night. A third of it tends to come from the guests also, and the last third tends to come from me and the 20 years of experience that we have. The other thing too that's really helpful is for me to know the 5 to 10 songs that both you and your fiance, when you hear them, you'll go, hey sweetie, let's go out on the dance floor, right? And so songs that you guys will dance together to is as important as almost anything else in the planning. As important as the playlist is, the do not playlist can be oftentimes as important. Located above me is a list of the top 200 songs that typically work at wedding receptions. Oftentimes couples will go through those and highlight or type up the ones that they like or don't like. And you can just simply email those over, or we'll talk about them in your meeting. When it comes to the grand entrance, there's just a couple of simple things that we need to know. First of all, would you like to do one? If so, which one of the 3 ways would you like to have it performed? The first of the 3 ways is a formal grand entrance, which is as much like you'd see at a formal or a prom. Oftentimes I'll announce them as such and such tonight is escorted by such and such. Very formal. The ramping grand entrance is probably the most popular out of all of the 3 ways. It starts very conversationally with your audience, oftentimes with me asking them, hey, what are you guys looking forward to tonight? Or some type of question. And it ends very presentationally with you guys coming into the room, everyone standing on their feet and applauding as you walk to get greeted to the biggest night of your life. A high energy grand entrance takes a truly unique wedding party. It takes a group of people that are ready to come in at a very high level and get crazy immediately when they walk into the room. Typically the room goes dark, the bass comes on, and we're off to the races. We've found that a few accessories in general always improve the entertainment value of any grand entrance. If you're doing an on-site wedding, 50% of the time the grand entrance is skipped altogether. This is due to the fact that you've been with your group the entire time. Typically after a grand entrance, if there's a welcome or a prayer from a dad or a pastor, this is when that would be performed. We'll visit with you in detail about both the grand entrance and the welcome/prayer when we meet with you in person. So let's talk a little bit about the social hour at your wedding reception. Typically the music consists of Colbie Caillat, Michael Bublé, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, that genre of music. From there, the top of the list of things that people typically add at a wedding reception is still an old school slideshow. You know, most slideshows at most wedding receptions happen after dinner and before the dance starts. In general, I think this is a horrible way to do it because that's right when everyone's food is settling, and it's better to do something to get them laughing instead of something like a slideshow that typically puts them to sleep. I would prefer, if we're going to do a slideshow at your wedding, that we do it from the moment that the guests walk into the room up through the time that the speeches happen. And also sometimes at wedding receptions, we'll put it back on later on at night, say 9, 10 o'clock at night. Having watched tons of these slideshows, it always seems like it's 4th grade picture, 5th grade picture, 6th grade picture, and by 7th grade, everyone is tuned out. What I believe after watching hundreds of slideshows is that guests are simply looking for pictures of themselves. So more pictures of the guests tends to make a better slideshow. And also, when they're all mixed together, that's sometimes a helpful thing. So it doesn't have to just go bride side, then groom side, and then together pictures, but rather jumble them all together. Because again, people are only looking for pictures of themselves. Also, I do think it's important to at least mention that when the guests first arrive, everyone always has drinks, but having something there for the guests to be able to snack on is a helpful thing. Sometimes people show up and they're hungry when they get to the wedding, so by the time that they get to the reception, they're starving. There should be some type of snack, whether it's chips and salsa or even popcorn. It doesn't have to be much, but there needs to be something there for them to snack on right away. Let's talk about the time between the speeches being over, the dinner being finished up, and before the dance starts. Typically, this time is used as a social hour at most wedding receptions. I believe after 20 years of doing this that you should do something during this time to help keep the guests laughing and engaged with the party so that nobody leaves. Still topping the list is an old school game called the back-to-back game. In this activity, we'll ask that you guys come up, stand back to back with one another, and we'll ask you a series of questions about your relationship. If you believe that you're the right answer, you're going to go ahead and you're going to raise your shoe. If you believe that your spouse is maybe a better answer to the question, you're going to go ahead and you're going to raise your spouse's shoe. So I'm going to take you guys back to the moment where you first met. Between the two of you, who really made the first move? Once again, if you believe that you're the answer, go ahead and raise your shoe. Then we might ask, between the two of you, when it comes to driving, who's the better driver? And who's got the crazier friends? The next activity is called the Get Things game, and it's basically a scavenger hunt with things out of the audience. We ask for very simple objects. Your guests or even the wedding party is asked to run out into the audience, find whatever I've asked them to find, and return back. The last person that returns gets eliminated from the game. We might ask for a belt or a woman's left shoe, and this game typically concludes with 3 or 4 contestants being asked to gargle their all-time favorite song. The next activity is called Brain Freeze, and it's very simple. The wedding party comes forwards, they stand shoulder to shoulder facing out towards the rest of the group. We'll give them a suggestion, such as an occupation, and they have to come up with one word that relates to whatever that suggestion is. So an example of this is things that you would find at a hospital. And one person might say a nurse, another person might say a doctor, and the minute that one of those guests or your wedding party freezes, the audience is going to go ahead and buzz them, and thus eliminating them from the game. This game concludes with asking about you two as a couple, and we'll go right down the list with giving me one word that reminds you of the bride. So one person might say beautiful, awesome, fantastic, until somebody freezes, and then they get eliminated from the game. This next activity is called a hand to hold. What we will do is, as the groom, we'll throw a microphone in your right hand, and with your left hand, you'll be asked to touch a whole bunch of different hands. As the MC, I will ask you this one simple question: is this your wife?
Slowly give that arm a little touch, a little tickle. Tell me, is that your wife?
I don't think so. I hope not.
What is that one?
Harry.
The next activity is called Question Question. For this activity, we'll ask that couples come forwards, stand facing their significant other, and all they have to do is ask a question. We're gonna go rapid fire back and forth until one of them freezes. The minute that they freeze, the audience will go ahead and buzz them. So she might say, why is the sky blue? He might ask, why is the grass green? She might say, how did we get here tonight? And he might ask, how are we getting home? As long as it's a question, they stay in the game. The minute that it's not, the audience buzz them, they get eliminated, and we narrow the group down to just the last 2 people. This game is incredibly fun if you have good outgoing people that are in your audience. So your job is to just make a quick decision on which of these activities, if any, that you would like to use at your wedding reception. With that being said, one of the key things is, because of the level of experience that I have, you can just grant that to me and say, will you figure this out for us on the night of the wedding? Oftentimes this works the best, because then we can kind of get a vibe for what the group is like on that night. After the speeches are wrapped up, we have a unique opportunity to do something for the little ones in the group. It's now time for the kids dance. If you guys are inviting kids to the wedding, oftentimes throwing a little kids dance for anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes gives the parents a good chance to go over and get a drink, and gives the kids something fun to do. Following the kids dance, oftentimes it's fun to get a couple of little kids up, put them on chairs, and then do a little activity called Kids Say the Darndest Things. In this activity, we like to ask the little ones questions about love, marriage, and relationships. Oftentimes the questions are simple, like how old should you be when you get married, or how old should you be when you go on your first date, all the way up to what does the perfect date look like? So these are the simple questions for the kids, and oftentimes you get a hand, and kids really truly do say the darndest things. So the question that I have for you guys is, 1, are you having little kids at the wedding? If so, is it okay to include them with the dancing very early on in the night? Let's talk about your first dance and some of the unique things that can be done. First and foremost, do you have a song picked out? If you do, when would you like that song played? You know, most couples traditionally start the dance, but that doesn't have to be true all the time. Many couples that we've worked for, we've actually done a first dance immediately following their grand entrance. So it goes grand entrance right into their first dance, and then from there, we actually sit down and begin with the prayer. Some of the couples that we've worked for over the years have actually remixed their first dance, but you gotta be a pretty outgoing couple to pull this off. Traditionally, after the first dance, we do a father-daughter dance. If you're still close with your dad, this is something that you may want to consider. The father-daughter dance usually just consists of one song. If you need some suggestions, up underneath one of the tabs, you can see father-daughter dances there. Also with the father-daughter dance, I think it's really special if I can convince you into just recording a quick little message on your phone and then text messaging it to me. And then we can actually blend that right into the music so that maybe a minute into the song, we hear your voice as the bride saying, "Hey Dad, this is your little girl. I just wanted to take a minute on my wedding day to tell you what you mean to me." I can't tell you how special that makes both the father-daughter dance and sometimes even the mother-son dance at that point of the night. When it comes to the mother-son dance, just pick a song for that. We'll play that on the night of your wedding. Some couples, just to get to the dance a little bit sooner, elect to combine both the father-daughter and mother-son dance together. This is nice because it shortens down on the time, and it also doesn't make it so awkward that if you don't want everyone looking at you, you kind of have a few more people on the dance floor at that point. So just decide on how you'd like some of these first dances to go. We'll talk about this when we meet with you in person. Let's talk a little bit about the specialty dances for the night. The first one is an anniversary dance, and in this way we ask all of the married couples to come out to the dance floor, and we begin to dismiss them based on how long they've been married. So oftentimes I'll start by saying, if you've been married for 12 hours or less, please leave the dance floor. Well, obviously you guys are out of there. And then 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, right on up. It's very fun when you get to the end of it and you're at 50 and 60 years to just take a moment to honor some of these people that have literally spent a lifetime being married. And it's very cool to go over and ask them just a couple of simple questions like, how did you make it this long? It's also a very cool moment for the audience to see them being honored on your wedding day. When it comes to the rest of the specialty songs, oftentimes we like to play them on a per request basis. Songs like the Cupid Shuffle, the Cha-Cha Slide, the Macarena, only if people come up and specifically ask for them do we usually like to put them on. With that being said, it's kind of nice to know if they're on the do not playlist right off the bat. Let's go ahead and talk about your bouquet toss. 90% of the couples that book our show still plan on doing some sort of a bouquet toss. With that being said, instead of just throwing a bouquet to the single ladies, which is a little slightly awkward, why not throw a bouquet made of lottery tickets to all of the women in the whole group? In this way, it's inclusive to the whole group instead of being exclusive to just the single ladies. One thing that's kind of fun from the MC part is I get to announce to the group, if you are a woman that wants to go shopping tomorrow or retire early, please come out to the dance floor. And it's a good way to get all of the dance floor packed with all of the women in the group. So the questions for you are: 1, would you like to throw a bouquet? 2, can we do a bouquet of lottery tickets to all of the women in the group? Or should we do 2 bouquets, one with your toss bouquet from your florist, and then a second one for all of the married women? Gentlemen, let's take a minute to talk about your garter removal. 50% of the guys that book our show choose not to do anything with the garter removal. They just think it's awkward. That's fine, that's what I did at my wedding. But for the other 50% that do choose to do a garter removal because it's a little bit of a rite of passage, there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can handle it. Probably the most traditional way is you as the groom basically approach your bride and slip the garter removal up. One tiny step up from there is to actually blindfold you as the groom and ask you to remove your wife's garter. The next step up from that is to have your groomsmen come over and actually pick you up like a battering ram. And a lot of times we'll throw a little cape on you, and basically you're brought in as Superman, and you begin to remove your wife's garter being held as a battering ram, supported by all of the guys that are around you. One thing that's kind of cool about doing it this way is it actually keeps a lot of the focus off of you because nobody can see you because you're surrounded by all of your best men. The next step up is to go dancing on up the middle. And what we mean by this is 2 groups are set 15 feet apart from each other and maybe 15, 20 people in each group. Your job is to dance your way on up the middle, and the bride works kind of like Caesar, where a thumbs up means that you can go ahead and you can remove the garter, a thumbs down means you need to return back to the beginning and start all on over. This is very fun because after you get a chance to get a thumbs up from your bride, your garter has been slipped off, then we usually let the people around the edges play a quick game of musical chairs where the winner of musical chairs then gets to keep the bride's garter. This has proved to be very, very fun because musical chairs usually get spirited, to say the least, and watching what people will do for the bride's garter is absolutely unbelievable on the night of a wedding. The garter hunt is probably the craziest way to handle the garter removal. This way of doing it, we get 15, 20 guys to put on 1980s women's wedding dresses, and then you as the groom have to figure out which pair of legs belongs to your wife versus which ones belong to a bunch of random dudes in the audience. It's awesome because you see almost all of the guests take out their phones and begin to videotape because it's totally wild and crazy. Again, this one usually concludes with dudes in wedding dresses playing full contact musical chairs with the winner getting to keep, that's right, your garter. So just do a little bit of thinking as to which one of these ways best suits you and your style. They're all very fun to do. With that being said, like I said at the beginning, 50% of the people choose not to do any garter removal whatsoever. Are you gonna do a dollar dance at your wedding? You know, a typical dollar dance, if done correctly, can usually last anywhere between 6 to 8 minutes when it's done quickly. Most dollar dances that I see other DJs doing are 20 to 30 minutes. I tend to think that that's too long, but one question that I've got for you guys is, do you want to take that time to visit individually with your guests, or would you rather have that time doing some general dancing? So what speed would you like the dollar dance to go at? You know, a replacement for the dollar dance that's actually proved to work really, really well is to do a cake smash. And what I mean by that is the cake smash consists of the best man, maid of honor, going out into the audience, collecting money, and then that money is kind of used in place of the dollar dance. Are you interested in doing a cake smash? If you are, could we do that as a replacement to the dollar dance? Oftentimes I think it's important to just only do one thing that asks the guests for money instead of doing two things like a cake smash, which you're asking the guests for money, and then doing a dollar dance. That's too much. So pick one or the other, either a cake smash during the meal or a dollar dance much later on at night. Battle of the Sexes is an awesome late night activity. In this activity, we have a group of guys that faces off against a group of girls. It's kind of like charades set to music. Oftentimes we'll give them a suggestion, and then with their entire group, like the guys versus the girls, they have to form whatever that suggestion is using only their bodies. So an example of this would be show me pairs figure skating. Everyone grabs a partner and it gets crazy pretty quickly. Or show me Black Friday at Walmart. Or my favorite is still show me the old school manger scene. The music will always correlate to whatever the suggestions are. So if we say show me pairs figure skating, we'll find some figure skating music. Or if we say show me the manger scene, again we'll play Away in a Manger. The activity concludes with both sides being asked to show us how they would behave and act at the single greatest event that they had ever been to in their entire life. Let's talk a little bit about how we wrap up at the end of the night at your wedding reception. And one of the goals that I have for you guys is that the night essentially comes to a crescendo. And what I mean by that is there's something that we can do or plan so that there's something for people to look forward to. Well, sometimes that's as simple as doing a sparkler ending. Sometimes it's as simple as playing Piano Man and having the whole group around in a big circle, or Don't Stop Believing and taking a big final end of the night photo. So do a little talking about how you want it to wrap up. We'll make sure to talk about that when we meet with you in person.